Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. I hope you and your family are warm right now. I know it's cold throughout the country. I know it's pretty chilly here. The wind is blowing like crazy right now. But once again, I just hope that you and your family are safe. If you're watching this right now, thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. On this edition, we're going to be talking about the Saints Week 16 matchup versus the Cleveland Browns. We know that the New Orleans Saints have to travel to Cleveland. It's going to be cold there. It's going to be under 15 degrees, if I'm not mistaken. It's a high chance of snow. This is going to be a very tough game for a team of the New Orleans Saints caliber this season. You have to deal with the weather, and also you have to deal with the Cleveland Browns, who have won 3 out of their last 4 games. But let's go ahead and break this game down. The New Orleans Saints are coming off a victory against the Atlanta Falcons, sweeping the Atlanta Falcons, winning 6 out of the last 7 games against the Atlanta Falcons. It wasn't the prettiest win. The Saints started off pretty hot. They started off 14-0, and they were able to hold on to that lead throughout the game, even though you have to admit the Atlanta Falcons did some things well. They ran the ball extremely well. Tyler Algier ran for 139 yards. And, you know, they were able to do some things with Drake London. Desmond Ridder made some passes to Drake London, but the Saints were able to hold him off in the end, get a crucial forced fumble at the end by Bradley Roby in order to seal the game. So, I mean, you won the game. That's the most important thing. But now you have to face a team in the Cleveland Browns that seem like they're starting to figure it out. Deshaun Watson, we know the story. I don't need to fill you in on the details when it comes to Deshaun Watson. You pretty much know what happened. He came back in week 11, and it's been kind of a rocky start for Deshaun Watson. He hasn't played football in nearly 2 years. But the game last week versus the Baltimore Ravens, you can start to see things are starting to turn around for Deshaun Watson. And that's what the Cleveland Browns need. They want to see Deshaun Watson go back to the classic Deshaun Watson that he was, before all the stuff that happens. And it seems like he was starting to find his way. Not to mention the running game of the Cleveland Browns. They're pretty tough. Nick Chubb, a really good running back. Kareem Hunt, who is also a really good running back. The Saints defense is going to have to find ways to neutralize these 2 guys. And if you watched the game last week that the Saints played, you have to say that your confidence going into this game is pretty low when it comes to stopping the run. In years past, the New Orleans Saints defense was really good at stopping the run. I mean, I know we remember that classic run when they had like 2 years where they didn't allow a 100-yard rusher. But it seems like this year, 100-yard rushers are coming way too often. I don't know if it's the depth. I don't know if it's the age. I don't know what's going on with the Saints defensive line. but they have not been able to stop the run. And that is not a good thing when you have really good running backs coming to play you. Well, not coming to play you, you're coming to play them, but you get my point. It's going to be tough for you. So you're going to have to be able to stop the run. Not to mention it's going to be cold out there. And we know that when the wind is swirling, cold weather, teams want to run the football. So you're going to have to be able to stop it. So hopefully they paid attention to detail, because the only way the Saints are going to have a chance to win this game, they're going to have to be able to stop the run. I mentioned Deshaun Watson before. You got to be able to keep him in check. We know that he can throw the ball, but he can also make plays with his legs. And that's probably going to be something that the Cleveland Browns are going to be utilizing throughout this game, using Deshaun Watson in different ways where they can actually run the ball and not put the ball in the air as often. The Cleveland Browns, they got some weapons, man. Of course, wide receiver Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper and Deshaun Watson, they're starting to find that connection. I know that Amari Cooper had a connection with Jacoby Brissett when he was playing, but Amari Cooper has silently been coming on as of late. Now, I know that people aren't paying attention to Amari Cooper as much as they used to now that he doesn't wear a Dallas Cowboy uniform. And I think that's probably beneficial to Amari, because Amari doesn't strike me as a guy that wants to be high profile. He doesn't want the microscope on him all the time. So I think now that he has gone away from the Dallas Cowboys, he can kind of play the game of football and have an enjoyable experience when you don't have to worry about a bunch of talking heads talking about your performance every single week on Monday Morning Quarterback. But he's having a really good, solid season. He's doing some really good things. As far as the Cleveland Browns defense, I mean, come on, man. Who am I going to start with? I'm talking Myles Garrett. And if you look at the Saints offensive line, they just lost Cesar Ruiz. He's going to be on IR. And you have James Hurst, who has to go up against arguably the best pass rusher in football in Myles Garrett. And we know that this dude is a beast. So he had 1.5 sacks last week versus the Baltimore Ravens. And we know this dude can wreak havoc. So if you're having issues at, the Atlanta Falcons getting into your quarterback, can you imagine Myles Garrett? So the Saints are going to have to be prepared. My suggestion would be maybe using a guy like Adam Troutman to maybe chip a guy like Myles Garrett to give James Hurst some help, because if you're asking me, can James Hurst hold Myles Garrett on his own? My answer to that would be no, sir. It's not going to happen. So you're going to have to find ways to try to slow this dude down. And not to mention, their front four, they can get home, man. They got Jadeveon Clowney out there as well. They got some ways that they can get to the quarterback, and their defense is looking really, really good, especially in their secondary. They got some really good, solid cornerbacks out there. Denzel Ward is one of the best young, talented cornerbacks that they have out there. And it is very, very hard to throw against this team. It is very, very hard to throw against this team. They do not allow a lot of passes through the air. It's a lot of pass deflections, and those cornerbacks and safeties, they come down with the football quite often. So Andy Dalton definitely is going to have to make really good decisions when the Saints are asking him to throw the football, because if he doesn't, then this game can get out of hand, because their secondary can get the ball into the hands of their offense once again, and you're going to find yourself being behind the 8 ball. And we've seen throughout the season that when the Saints get behind, it's kind of hard for them to come back. Also, on the offensive side of the ball, look, you don't have Chris Olave in this game. It's unfortunate. He's dealing with a hamstring injury. Didn't even travel with the team. So you're going to be looking at some of those guys that were a part of this wide receiver group back last year. I'm talking Traquan Smith. I'm talking Marquez Callaway. And also I'm talking Rashid Shaheed, who has been coming on as of late. Juwan Johnson also has been coming on as of late. So you're going to have to find ways to try to get the ball into the hands of these guys. I'm suggesting maybe some short intermediate routes, maybe some plays where maybe those wide receivers can get some yards after the catch, because I just think that in those weather conditions, it's going to be hard to try to throw the ball down the field. That wind can basically just take that ball out of bounds somewhere. So the Saints are going to have to find ways to try to use the passing game, maybe in like little short intermediate routes. So you're going to have to be able to use these guys to be able to scheme them open. As far as the running game, the Saints are going to have to use the running game. The offensive line has been struggling to get that push front, in order to open up lanes for the running backs. So Alvin Kamara, hopefully they find different ways to try to use him instead of just running him up the gut. I keep saying this over and over again, and I'm going to continue to say it. Alvin Kamara is not the type of running back that you just want him running up the gut constantly. You have to become creative. You got to find ways to use him. And that includes maybe even implementing these choice routes, right? We know that Alvin Kamara, you get the ball into his hands in space, he can get those extra yards. He can get that yak, those yards after the catch if you put him in the right position. So instead of trying to run him up the middle like this is 1955 and we're watching the old Green Bay Packers with Vince Lombardi and Bart Starr, how about finding innovative ways to run the football? Because I feel like that is how Alvin Kamara is going to be more effective. Also, I think you need to utilize David Johnson. I think David Johnson is a really good running back. I know he fumbled last week, but look, I have no choice but to have confidence in this dude at this point because, nobody is coming through that door. Adrian Peterson in the late 2000s isn't coming through that door. Chris Johnson, isn't coming through that door. You think about all these different classic running backs, Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders, they're not coming through that door. So you're going to have to find ways to try to use the talent that you actually have. And that includes maybe even using Kirk Merritt from time to time. Whatever you have to do to be able to run the ball effectively. And I can't forget about Taysom Hill as well. Any way that you can run the ball effectively, you got to find a way to do that. As far as the Saints secondary, look, last week, it wasn't that much of a game for them. Okay. Desmond Ridder had about 90 some odd yards. So they did a really good job, especially Alontae Taylor. Alontae Taylor is probably going to be matched up against Amari Cooper quite often in this game. It's going to be a tough task for him because Amari Cooper is very savvy when it comes to running these routes. And I like the fact that Alontae Taylor has not shied away or backed down from any competition, no matter who it is. I don't care if it was Devontae Adams. I don't care if it was DeAndre Hopkins. Whoever he goes up against, he goes out there and he battles. He wins. Sometimes he loses, but he just never wavers and he never gives up. Paulson Adebo is going to have to have a good game. The Honey Badger has been playing pretty well. Marcus May made some plays. The linebackers are going to have to fly around the football, definitely trying to make these tackles on these running backs, making sure that these guys don't get wide open lanes and hit their head on a goalpost. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see if the Saints can put it all together. So the question on everyone's mind is, who is going to win this football game? To me, I just think that if you look at the elements, if you look at Cleveland just basically being on a hot streak, and if you've been watching Deshaun Watson play over the last couple of weeks and this last game that he played, you have to believe that he's starting to come on. It's going to be tough for the Saints to win this football game. It's going to be rough. No Chris Olave in this game. Them probably not being able to pass the ball the way that they want to in these type of weather conditions and what we've seen when it comes to running the football. I think it's going to be tough for the New Orleans Saints to win this game. So I have the Cleveland Browns winning this football game against the New Orleans Saints. And unfortunately, it's probably going to, it's going to put the Saints out of playoff contention and officially eliminating them from playoff contention. But I would love to hear from you. What do you all think about the Saints Week 16 matchup versus the Cleveland Browns? What do you think the keys to victory are with the New Orleans Saints? Do you think the Saints are going to win, going to lose? Comment down below, like and share this video. This has been the State of the Saints podcast. Subscribe to the channel. We're close to 10,000 subscribers, so I need your help if you have not subscribed to the channel. Also, check out Facebook.com, search The State of the Saints podcast, and previous episodes are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Anchor FM. Till next time, all I got to say is, who dat?